Anyways, cheers, man.
Cheers, dude.
Cheers. Great. Dude, I'm so happy I picked this. This is like
It's
one of
good.
the best ones I've had in a while for me.
Yeah.
It's not quite your type, but
No, it isn't. But it's like I can appreciate stuff that's not my taste. Like,
yeah.
I was trying to think of a more civil way to say that, so I chose the higher road there.
That was very. What do you say? Like political of you?
Yeah.
That was very polite of you, I guess.
Yes. I have an opinion on this, Arthur.
Yes.
That was my political response. I'm not going to tell you what the opinion is
Dude,
in true politic fashion.
So today I wanna talk with you about how our image of Japan has changed.
Yeah.
Since moving here. So how long have you been in Japan again?
Around 6 years.
Okay. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I've been here for 7 now.
Yeah.
So so I guess we can start off with like what was kind of your image of what Japan was like before you came. But you also came here in like high school, right?
So yeah, I think we can kind of go back in time a little bit.
Yeah.
So I honestly didn't have much of an opinion on Japan prior to coming here.
When you were in high school or
Yeah.
recently? Okay.
When I was in high school.
Okay.
And that might sound kind of odd because like usually when you hear foreigners coming here, they kind of have like an established like idea of what Japan is, right? So like some backstory. So I grew up watching anime as a kid. I think most kids in our generation grew up with anime. Like you have like Dragon Ball, you have Gundam, you have like Evangelion. The list goes on. We kind of like grew up during like the golden age of anime.
Yeah.
Is what's often said.
Yeah,
right?
at least for the States for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like for me, that was really my only knowledge of Japan. Like before I came here. And honestly, so I started taking Japanese in school, right? So my options for foreign languages in my school was Japanese and Spanish.
Okay.
And
not French?
No.
What?
Yeah, my school was really small.
Okay.
That's why we were kind of like just starting. Like my class was the first class to graduate from my school.
Okay.
So I'm sure the language program has increased now, but I was really jealous of my friend who went to public school because he had Japanese, Spanish, French, and German. And personally, and it's kind of fortuitous that I didn't, and I ended up studying Japanese, but personally, I would have preferred to learn German. Yeah. Because I really like German culture.
Yeah.
And German's a very easy language for English speakers to learn. So it just would have been something I wanted to learn. But I chose Japanese. And honestly, the only reason why I came to Japan was just because it sounded fun to do during the summer. It's like, all right, cool. I get to get away from my parents and go, have fun in a different country.
Okay.
And then coming here as a high school student was a really eye-opening experience. This was back in 2005.
Okay.
So at the time, Japan's economy was like, I'm not an expert, but I feel like it was doing better than it was now. Because like everything, like basically the way that I would describe it is, a lot of technology that I saw over there as a high schooler, I'd never seen in the US.
Yeah.
Like the phones, this is like pre-iPhone.
Yeah.
This is like a year or two before the first iPhone came out. And I remember looking at like when we got to school and like my classmates in just high school here, I'd look at their phone and I'd be like, dude, their phone has cameras on it. Like, what? Like they can access the internet on this? Like, this is crazy. This is so high tech. Like, I thought their phones were so cool. Yeah. And I was really into like console gaming at the time, right? And like, of course you had
what console?
So okay. I'm a Microsoft guy.
Okay.
I like Xbox. I appreciate PlayStation. I had both. So that's where all
Okay. There you go.
Yeah. I know people get very adamant on that. Like I have a lot of friends who are like diehard PlayStation guys here, and they're just like, you have an Xbox?
Yeah. No, dude. So I've always been like a Nintendo guy, but I've never been a super serious gamer either. So.
Dude, I feel like that's like the embodiment of Nintendo, though, is it not? Like Nintendo's always been like, yeah, we just play video games. I'm not really serious about video games.
Okay,
like that's how Nintendo is as a company.
Yeah.
You know, you have like Xbox and Microsoft that are like, look at these amazing graphics and really intense story-driven games. And Nintendo's like, yeah, we made Mario with a different colored hat.
Let's have fun.
Woo!
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. No, I get it. It's more like it's more casual, more fun. Yeah.
No, I appreciate Nintendo though. I actually want to buy a Switch right now.
Yeah.
I told Yui that I really want to get that.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny how they've kind of like all gone like, well, Xbox and PlayStation are really kind of shooting for the same market, but Nintendo was like, yeah, we can't compete with this. Let's just do our own thing.
And it is genius.
Yeah.
It really is. They know their place in the industry, and it's really great. You know, the fact that they've been able to just continuously release Mario games and no one's like
for like 30 years.
No one's throwing up in their mouth when the new Mario game comes out because everyone's like, oh yeah, it's a Mario game.
And when you say it that way, it is kind of amazing.
Yeah, it really is.
So high-tech phones, anyways, and you're into console games.
So I remember there was a thing called a PSP. PlayStation Portable, right?
Yeah.
And
I have one of those.
Yeah. So they came out like, I want to say, God, I'm showing you my age here. They came out like, I think like a year or two before I came to Japan for the first time, right? And oh my God, Arthur. So we came over here and so if you remember PSPs, they're kind of like big, bulky, black.
Yeah, right.
Like kind of console with like a little kind of crappy screen, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
But over here, they had a white version.
Yeah.
And you couldn't get the white version in the US. That was a Japan only thing. And so immediately I bought that. And going back to the US, like I felt like a god. I was like, look at my exclusive Japanese PSP.
Yeah.
It's so cool. It's all white.
Yeah.
You know, because like you get the black one and it's smudged and everything. And like it shows dirt a lot easier than the white version does.
Yeah.
So, oh man, I felt so cool. And so like that first trip to Japan, that was my image. Was like Japan's this like high-tech area that, you know, you go, it's like kind of like a futuristic wonderland. And then my subsequent trips in high school kind of mirrored that. And then I took a trip here sophomore year in college. So this would have been probably 2014. So almost around 10, 12 years later, somewhere around there. And I remember like it was like a complete contrast to my image that I had before.
But did you go to different places?
No. So the reason why I went in college was just to visit friends. So I went to all the same places. I spent some time in Tokyo, and then I went to I mostly hung out in Kansai because that's pretty much like Kansai is like where all my like really long-term friends are here. And don't get discouraged. I mean, long-term is like over 10 years.
It's fine. Don't worry about it. We don't have to talk about that. It's fine.
But yeah. So I came over here, and so this is obviously post, you know, Apple area where it's like Apple's taken over everything. And I remember it didn't feel as much as it didn't feel I don't know how to describe it. It didn't feel like Japan to me.
Yeah. Okay.
You know,
how so? What happened?
In a way that before I would go over and you would see all these very uniquely Japanese electronics, right?
Yeah.
You would see vending machines everywhere. You would see payphone banks. You would see all these things that it's like when I think of Japan, maybe I have an old-fashioned image of this, but when I think of that, it's like that feels very Japanese to me. You have like all these electronics that just look different than American stuff.
Yeah.
And then when I came over, it's like everything's been taken over by Apple. So all of a sudden, I'm seeing American brands everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, American clothing brands have just exploded. Fast food has exploded. I mean, you see McDonald's and like Jack in the Box, Wendy's. You see those brands everywhere. Right. And Starbucks too.
Right.
So it's like I've really noticed like how Americanized at least the cities are.
Yeah, it's getting to be like that. I think it's getting to be like that everywhere. You know, I remember so I was born in a small town in Germany outside of Frankfurt.
Yeah.
And I went back there for the first time in maybe, I don't know, like 8 years. I went there 3 years ago. And I was in the town center and there was a Subway there.
Okay.
Like a Subway sandwich. And I'm like, wow, things have changed for sure. This is big.
Oh my God. I don't remember who I was talking to. This just reminded. I think it was there's a guy at my school who goes to Greece a lot.
Okay.
And I think it was him where he was explaining like they were walking in this kind of like old town and he saw some like ruins or at least it looked like these like ancient ruins and it just turned out to be a McDonald's. So it's like you have these like 1,000-year-old buildings and then he walk closer and it's like, oh, okay, there's the golden arches. Right. All right, cool.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like here, like if you go to Kyoto and you see like this really nice kind of like wooden building and it's a Starbucks. Yeah. It's like, wow, okay. Wow, I'm shell-shocked a bit. But, you know, I kind of get that. You know, it's funny because you and I have like big touch points in Japan around the same time. So the first time I ever went to Japan was 2007, which was the year the iPhone came out. Or maybe the iPhone came out in 2008, but something like that.
Yeah.
And I remember going on the train, and people were reading books, or they were like texting on their phone and putting their phone in their pocket or something.
Yeah.
And one of the things that shocked me when I came back in 2013, just a year before you came back, was everyone had an iPhone and everyone was glued to their phone. So I didn't see people just sitting there doing nothing. Everyone was like this, you know.
Yeah.
But for me, you know, so I started learning Japanese for purely a utilitarian purpose.
Sure.
Because, you know, over in Boston, there's not as many Asian people as there are. Well, they are in Harvard, but not in like the suburbs.
There's a big difference going to the West Coast.
There was one Japanese person in my high school.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And basically it would get to the point where someone was like, oh yeah, Arthur, he's the guy who studies Asian. Like, Arthur, can you say something to me in Chinese? I'm like, I speak Japanese. Yeah, can you say something in Chinese? And I say something in Japanese. And they're like, oh, that doesn't sound like Asian. I'm like, yeah, because it's not Chinese.
Oh my God.
But
good old racism.
Isn't it great? Yeah, but no, so the so I started learning Japanese because I wanted to become a comic book artist, and I wanted to become a manga artist because I really liked Rurouni Kenshin and Dragon Ball and like the anime stuff. And when I was drawing it, my friend was like, "Oh yeah, Arthur, that's the Japanese stuff."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh wait, this is Japanese? I had no idea."
Yeah.
You know, at first. You want to say something?
Oh, I think I talked to you about this, but I just rewatched all the Rurouni Kenshin movies, the live action one. Oh man, they were so good. I had such a fun time. They're really over the top. Like, you know, Japanese action movies are, but it was fun. Anyways, go on.
So I really didn't know much about the culture, and I wasn't really interested in the culture so much either. I just wanted to go to the place where they developed this art style because I really like the art style.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I first went to Japan for the first time, I had just started getting acquainted with more like traditional Japanese culture, and I started getting into ukiyo-e and haiku a little bit.
Yeah.
And when I went to this really small town in Osaka called Tondabayashi, there's like nothing around.
Yeah.
We went to some traditional areas, and it was really nice looking at that. And the family that I was with was really intentional, trying to instill in me like traditional Japanese values, like you eat your rice until the very last grain. Arthur, you need to take your bath this way at this time. In Japanese houses, we do this. You must do this, and it's great. I learned a lot, right?
Yeah.
Man, my host mother would be so embarrassed seeing me now.
You know, it's funny. My host mom was very similar.
Yeah.
In Kansai.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was really strict on a lot of stuff.
Yeah. But it was good because it really teaches you.
It really is.
Yeah.
I do agree.
And then when I got back from Japan, for some reason I lost all my interest in manga, but I kept on learning, and I started to get into the history and the traditional Japanese art. Like I really got attracted to the concept of wabi-sabi and all that stuff. So when I came back to Japan as an adult, I was 22 years old. You know, I really wanted to get into that traditional Japanese culture thing. So I knew that Japan was pretty modern and there was like all sorts of technology stuff like you were talking about. So what I was thinking of when I came to Japan was that it would be pretty high tech with a lot of like cutting edge technology, but there would also be a nice space for all this traditional stuff that like I would see more traditional stuff. And like when I came here, that image was shattered in like 2 weeks. Especially because I got into the bureaucracy. Well, no, because like especially I think it's because I came into the bureaucracy of moving, finding a place, and getting into all of that stuff. So like one thing that really shocked me that's really changed my mind is there are some really I wouldn't say necessarily cutting edge, but there are a lot more intentional things in Japan. Like on the ATM screens, you'll see an animation of an employee bowing, which you wouldn't see that in the States. Or like on the trains, they have little cute characters to get you to pay attention to all this stuff. And the manhole covers always have like a design on them. And that's great. But then there are other aspects where everything is just so old fashioned. Like everything is flash frozen in the 90s. And you can't get beyond that. Like I remember when I went to open up a business bank account at Mitsubishi, and I wanted an online banking option, which by the way costs extra if you want to do that for your business. Costs $15 a month. And the way that you set up an account is when you're opening the bank account and you're filling out the paper form, you have to write your username and your password on the form. And to make sure that they don't put in your password wrong is in the password box where they have all the boxes for the character, there's a checkbox above and below. And if the character is uppercase, you check the upper box. And if the character is lowercase, you check the lower box. And at first I did it and I didn't see the checkboxes. So I put it back to them. They're like, no, you have to put in the checkboxes. And I'm like, okay, so this one's uppercase, this one's lower, this one's upper, this one's lower. And then when I forgot my password because they asked me to change it on the system again, I had to go back and I had to do the same thing again.
Wouldn't it be just incredible if there was like some electronic device that was able to do that?
Like a computer?
Yeah. And here's another wild concept. And maybe I have to copyright this idea, but what if you could do that from home? Yeah,
right.
That would just be such a revolutionizing thing.
I know, right? And another huge thing for me with the business side too was I remember I did business with I did a contract with a pretty large English learning company that has a lot of infomercials on TV and stuff, or they used to at least. And I was going to make videos for them. So they sent me a hard drive in the mail for me to put my videos on to send them back. Because I cannot send them via email or a file sharing service. It needs to be, at least it wasn't a floppy disk. You know, or a CD.
Bless them, but I will say things are slowly starting to change.
They are changing, yeah.
My school's just now starting to adopt Google Drive and Google Classroom.
Okay, great.
It's a very steep learning curve for everybody, but you know what? Thank God it's finally changing.
Yeah.
Oh man, I know. We used to. So we had hard drives for everything. So the hard drive. The bit about the hard drive you just mentioned that really resonates with me because literally all of our lesson plans. Oh, I mean, you experienced that, like getting the stupid little like 15-year-old hard drive disk.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, so like for me, the big thing that's happened is, before I would think that it would be very high tech and there would be a lot of traditional culture stuff. But one of the things I remember, so I talked with one of my really good friends, Ken. I don't know if you ever met Ken. He lives in Nagasaki now.
I don't think so.
Yeah, he used to. He and I we were roommates in college, and he helped me. He actually helped me start Uconnect. Actually.
Oh, okay.
But I remember when I was hanging out with him, and we were driving around in Tokyo. And I was saying, it's kind of a shame that there's no traditional culture everywhere. Like the Japanese-ness is underneath all of this like Western stuff. And I see everything is nice, like glitzy and clean and kind of ornate, which is Western aesthetic and not the Japanese traditional wabi-sabi aesthetic. And I remember him saying like, yeah, Arthur, that's just the surface. You don't actually see what's behind that.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
I think as I've matured as a person. I think my opinion of Japan is also matured.
Yeah.
And it's kind of gone in these stages where like I had this fantasy land image that I think is more something that I think many tourists connect with when they come to Japan, for different reasons or maybe for the same. For me, I wasn't so much drawn to like the otaku culture as much, but for me it was like a technology thing is what I first fell in love with in Japan. And then that evolved into appreciating just appreciating how nice people are.
Yeah.
Like something that I still really heavily respect about Kansai people is they're nosy. They're really, really nosy.
In a friendly way.
But I love that though. Yeah. I love it. I love when people get in your business and just like ask you about your life, because it's just they don't have to, you know? And it feels really good when someone's just like, yeah, so, you know, Austin, you've gotten fat.
Yeah.
But like they, like, for example, my host family, down in Kansai, like I visited and they're like, Austin, wow, you were really like losing a lot of weight this past year. And oh, you gotten fat now.
Yeah.
Oh, you must be happy. Like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's like those little small things. It's like, okay, but that makes me feel good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that. And you know, I've mentioned it a couple times on the channel. Something that the longer I live here, the more I fall in love with is just the day-to-day life.
Okay. Which is funny because most English teachers,
I know,
they lose their idea that they want to live in Japan after being a teacher here.
Yeah.
So like, can you explain that a bit?
Yeah. So it's just like, I think something about Japan is, I think a lot of people grow up here in this country, and I want to finish that statement because that sounds a little stupid to say that, but like, people here are able to deal with a lot, you know, like companies, primarily in Tokyo, but in other parts of the country also, you know, they're put under a lot of stress. They work a lot of hours. And one thing that I think people in Japanese culture can do is they can endure a lot. They can deal with a lot of BS, you know? And as a foreigner coming in and working in that environment, that's not our culture, right? You work in the US, you got your 9 to 5. It's like a perfect example. I don't have a contract at my job right now. And I'm probably not getting a contract until the beginning of the next school year. But that's okay. You know what I mean? It's that kind of thing. It's like everyone kind of understands what's supposed to happen and how things are supposed to operate.
Yeah.
So it's the same way with my cell phone. Like my contract expired on my cell phone 4 years ago.
Okay.
And I haven't gotten a new contract because I keep paying my phone bill.
Yeah.
And the company's like, all right, he's paying the phone bill, so we just continue things. And it's like that kind of thing. It's like once you kind of just let go and stop stressing about things, I think daily life here is really relaxing. I love working. I love going to work. You know, as ridiculous as it sounds, I don't mind getting on the train every day, even though I hate being on the train sometimes. You know, it's like all of the little stresses that I hear people talk about all the time. It's not that I enjoy it, but it doesn't bother me. Yeah. And I think that's something that people growing up here, they are able to do without even thinking about it. The only reason why I bring it up is because it's such a new concept to me that I keep looking at it and going, wow, this is so crazy. Yeah. So that's why I think people have such a hard time here is because they haven't adjusted, or they don't know how to just let go of things and just kind of just go with the flow. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think like a lot of people who come here, right? They come here and they really want to come here because they're missing something where they're living now. Sure. And so they're trying to see living in Japan will be an antidote to a problem that they're having, right? Yeah. And that's not going to happen. You know, like for me now, since living here for so long, yeah, I mean, there's some like some things are technologically old and whatever, but what I've realized is this is a very comfortable country to live in.
Very much.
For me, I see it very much as just another piece of land in the world, except it happens to be pretty safe.
Yeah.
Education can be pretty good. And it's very convenient.
Mm-hmm.
And like you say, the thing about here is that, instead of being like this is going to sound really racist, instead of being like a place or a culture that's on show for me to enjoy myself, I see that this is a place where the rules are pretty clearly laid out.
Very much.
And if you get rid of your ego and stop saying like, oh, Japan should be more like this because then I'd be happier. And you just realize, okay, well, you're not necessarily happier because of outside circumstances. You're happy because of what's in here, right?
Yeah.
And so then you take on that role.
Yeah.
You take on that expectation and you just live your life.
Yep.
Then things go so great.
Yeah.
It's like, as bad as it sounds, it's like getting into an assembly line.
Yeah.
Your parts decided, you know what to do.
So I think, so what I'm about to say, I honestly think you would agree with me, but I'm curious. I want to hear your opinion on this. So
I disagree.
Oh my God. Thought I had a beat on you.
Okay.
So when I lived in the US, and I think my family can probably attest to this. I was constantly really stressed about stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I just had a lot of anxiety about everything. And for many of the reasons that you just listed, I feel like I'm able to relax here.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that such a funny concept because on paper, if you were to put Japan and America next to each other and kind of look at the two cultures and go, okay, which seems like it'd be more stressful to live in?
Yeah.
I think most people, and probably even myself looking at it, would go, okay, obviously America seems way less stressful than living in Japan.
Yeah, because America's so free.
Yeah, it's like I don't have to ride the train and be cramped and like, especially during the summer, it's like sitting next to a whole bunch of sweaty people. Like there's way less bureaucracy and stuff that you have to deal with in America. Like by and large, work is easier. Finding an apartment and daily life is probably easier than Japan. But I feel way less stressed here. You know what I mean? I am able to relax in a way that, like, I have such a hard time explaining it to my family of why this place feels like home to me instead of Seattle. And it's purely just because like I feel like I'm able to live my life here.
So when I think about this, right, humans are not meant to live individual lives.
Yeah.
We're not meant to be living isolated by ourselves. A way that some people talk about is we're not supposed to create our own story. We're supposed to enter into a story that's already been there. And I think one of the reasons why we have so much stress and so much anxiety in the States is because there's no story anymore. You just kind of show up and it's kind of like when you're tasked with with making a painting and you have a blank canvas, it's like, cool. What should I do? And they're like, do anything. It's like, what does anything mean?
It's kind of daunting.
Yeah, but if you have like a paint by numbers thing, like there's a reason why paint by numbers goods are way more popular than just blank canvases, right?
For sure.
Because it's already decided. You kind of know what you need to do and you just follow it step by step. You make something that's not amazing, but you make something that's good enough for you, right? So that's kind of like how it is here. You walk in, instead of saying there's a story, you could say you walk in with preconceived expectations.
Yep. Like
I remember, so a good example of this is job hunting, right? So I remember when I graduated college. I graduated college and it was time for me to find a job, but I hadn't done any internships because no one told me I needed to do an internship. They're like, you could if you want to, but you don't need to.
Yeah.
And then I go to like a career planning office and they're like, yeah, do you have any internships? I'm like, no. They're like, okay, well, let's help you find a job. And I'm like, cool. How do I find a job? Like, well, I don't know. You could post for job opportunities, or you could get an internship, or there wasn't one way to do it, right? But in Japan, you have like the shukatsu, right? You have like the role, like everybody puts on their suits, like it's a story that everyone follows, and because of that, there's a huge amount of competition. It can get really stressful, and so some people who are not good at those competitive environments, they feel left out. But it's a lot better than saying, "Hey, find a job. Good luck."
Yeah.
Yeah,
I do agree. It for me, it's just like I've never been good at taking that first step.
Yeah.
So like I think I really agree with what you said with the painting part. Because it feels like that. Because I mean, for me, my whole life, the idea of like stepping out of bounds. And like venturing into something new is terrifying for me, because I've had a path set for my life since I was 15, and it's like, all right, cool, got to do these steps to get into college, got to do these steps to graduate college, got to do these steps to become an English teacher in Japan. And so it's like, even the concept of like, I'll be talking with my friend, and I'll be talking with him about work, and he suggested to me like, hey dude, like you're out of jet now, you're an independent hire, maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to like branch out and go work for a different school, or maybe even leave teaching and go work in IT or something. Just try it out, see if that works for you. And that's terrifying for me.
Yeah.
Like I like having a very clear path in my job, and maybe that's holding me back in some places, but I feel like that, just having that mentality in Japan, like it just connects so well.
Yeah, and so I think like a lot of the Japanese people who feel like they don't fit in here, and those are the type of people who want to learn English because they see English as their ticket to get out of society.
Sure.
Like a lot of the time, they'll actually go out to the other countries, and if they get a certain sort of self-awareness, they'll realize, oh wait, it's not a burden for me to take on these expectations. This is actually helping to guide my life, so I don't need to think so much. It's a shortcut,
Yeah.
Now, this is coming from someone who is I don't do paint by numbers. I do the canvas. Even if it's a crappy picture, I will do it by myself, because I'm not going to listen to anyone's paint by numbers. I'm going to do things myself.
Dude,
right?
I'm sitting here like, not only do I have paint by numbers, but I'm using the official sanctioned paints that came with the paint by numbers.
Exactly.
I can't even use the ones that I have at home. It's like, no, these have to be the paints that I bought with the kit. Like,
and because of that, I have a lot of stress in my life too, and like I have a bunch of white hairs in my beard now because of my lifestyle, right? And so there's a great freedom that comes with that, but it's also such a huge heaviness that, living here is great because it's safe, it's convenient, and if you want to play by the rules, it's really great. If you don't want to play by the rules, it's going to be hell.
Yeah,
you should go somewhere else.
So something that I guess maybe I want to kind of close on is, so back when I was in the Marines, and this was when I first signed up, we went to boot camp. I remember you never call them drill sergeants. That's one of the things with the Marines. People get really upset about that. So our drill instructor is what they're called, came up to us, and they'd give us speeches like almost every day about random crap. But like one of the first speeches they ever gave to us is like, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Boot camp is the easiest time you'll ever have in the Marine Corps. And that concept to me at the time, I was like, dude, no way. Boot camp sucks. Like every day we're waking up at 5, we're going to bed at 10 o'clock in the evening. We're just constantly being screamed at. We're constantly being like basically abused. You're going through all this horrible torment to learn how to become a Marine. And there's no way. And then that stuck with me until the end of boot camp. And then I started reflecting on it, right? And especially like getting out of the boot camp and going into like basic, like we're all like everyone is in the Marines, right? You get into your job. And that's where it kind of hit me of like, I understand what he meant by that.
Mm-hmm.
And what he meant by that is when you kind of let go
Mm-hmm.
and you let outside forces kind of set a path for you in life, you don't have any stress about anything.
Yeah.
And you
just let it go.
You understand. It's like, for me, it's like, it was so stressful in boot camp thinking about the future, thinking about a week into the future in boot camp. Like, you can't comprehend it because you're under so much stress and so much pressure that it's just like, how could I possibly do this? No person can get through this. And then over time, you learn to just live meal by meal. And you're like, okay, I can't think about next week, but I can think about lunch.
Yeah.
I can think about doing the task that I have right now and then making it to lunch. And I make it to lunch. Okay, we made it to lunch. Let's try to make it to dinner now. And you just learn to do that every day. And I think here in Japan, I follow a similar belief.
Yeah,
and maybe that sounds bad, but it really isn't.
Yeah.
Because I am able to be in the moment here.
Yeah, right.
And because of that, I do not feel stress in my life. Like, I have a lot of things that are changing in my life. You know, like I've talked to you, I'm getting married, you know, I'm going to be starting a family and everything. And I'm freaking out about my wedding. Yeah, my wedding's super expensive. It's like 25 grand. And I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to pay for this? Yeah. But that doesn't bother me. Yeah. I'm not stressed about that because I know it's like, okay, well, I will find a way. I just have to keep doing things and I have to keep trying. It's not that I'm giving up and just going, well, it'll figure itself out, but I'm just focusing on doing
day by day,
you know? And I think if you're able to get that mentality here, it's like, Japan's such a great place to live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a really good point to end it on.
Yeah.
And I hope we rambled a bit and there was a lot of things in here, but I hope that people found this useful. But
yeah.
Dude, no, I'm glad we talked about this. We kind of came to the same conclusion. This is great.
Yeah.
All right, I'll see you next time.
See ya.